This video is brought to you by Squarespace, the easy solution to run your own domain, website or online store today. Most of the research and development that goes into sculpting and refining the aerodynamic shapes of the various parts of F1 cars is made in the wind tunnel and in sophisticated computer models called computational flow dynamics, or CFD models. Now make no mistake, this is where the majority of the hard work that goes into designing and testing aero parts like wings and diffusers takes place. But when the car hits the track, there's a big opportunity for some final aero checking and verification, and one of the ways teams can do this is with the use of Flow Visualization Paint, or Flow Viz. You've probably seen Flow Viz Paint used on cars in practice or testing sessions. The most eye-catching use recently was when Williams absolutely covered their car in various colour blocks of Flow Viz to try and solve some of the mysteries of their misbehaving chassis. More typically though, Flow Viz is seen used sparingly, precisely, and in specific areas of the car. You may see it on the front wing, over diffusers, barge boards, etc. So what is Flow Viz Paint? How does it work? And how does it help engineers and analysts understand their cars better? The main idea of Flow Viz Paint is to show the airflow patterns that manifest along the bodywork of the car as it drives at speed. These flows are normally invisible because, well, have you seen air lately? Exactly, no you haven't. Flow Viz is actually a pretty simple product. It's just powdered dye suspended in paraffin, or kerosene if you call it that, or a similarly light oil. And by suspended I mean the dye sits happily in amongst the oil once stirred, but will eventually sink and separate from the oil in time. The oil is just a medium to keep the dye flowing and free. The useful thing about this mixture is that it doesn't dry particularly quickly when it's all globbed together, so you can splosh it liberally over the cars as you want, and the paint will continue to run and flow as you drive the car at speed through the air. A lot of normal paints would dry or stick around the areas you painted them and not do anything particularly useful. The flow of the air around the car as it drives will push the oil, and therefore the dye, along the surface of the bodywork all free and flowing. But paraffin evaporates fairly readily, and this will leave the dye behind, stuck to the bodywork in all the flowing shapes it's made in the airflow. The aerodynamicists can then take photos of the car once it's parked back up in the garage and see if the paint patterns show the results they've been expecting. You'll often see very brightly coloured dyes that stick out against the bodywork so they can easily be seen when photographed by the team, but the dye itself may also be fluorescent, meaning it will show up much more strongly under UV lighting. So if you see Flow Viz that seems a little faint and unclear, the chances are the paint will look a lot more striking back in the garage under the right lights. Now, importantly, the point of Flow Viz isn't really to gain much quantifiable or precise data about the aerodynamics. Instead, it's a fairly quick and dirty method to double check that the computer models and wind tunnel tests corroborate with real life running. Teams can't fully replicate the many eccentricities of the real world from inside their own HQs, though Lord knows they've tried. So a full-scale run on a real track is the final definitive test for that new front wing or whatever it is they've been developing behind the scenes. Did it behave as expected? Does it differ from the old spec front wing in the way they've intended? Or is it giving some strange flow behaviour that you need to analyse and double check? This is the benefit of Flow Viz in the real world, though it has of course been used in wind tunnels for many years, way before it showed its head in testing and practice. Now there may be extreme cases like Williams this year where teams just want to evaluate the whole package and record lines over the whole chassis. And you can do that if you want, but you really shouldn't ever be at that point with a car halfway through a season. Okay, so you've slapped a load of Flow Viz paint on the part of the car you want to evaluate, and your driver has done a lap or two and brought the car back to the garage. How do you interpret the colourful mess left all over the carbon fibre? Well, firstly, as outsiders, we're never particularly sure what the aerodynamicists are looking for in any given test, particularly when testing one part against another. They may be looking for a number of characteristics, so we can't speak to the result of any particular evaluation. That being said, here's what happens to Flow Viz paint under various circumstances. Firstly, we can see clearly if there's a strong, clean, smooth airflow along the bodywork as opposed to a dirty, turbulent flow. Just using a wing profile here as an example, as it's easy to visualise, smooth airflow will run nicely along the surface in good, coherent lines all running together from beginning to end. You'll see this in the Flow Viz pattern too. Smooth, coherent lines, just like someone took a nice, quality paintbrush and drew a clean stroke over the bodywork. Satisfying. Smooth airflow is desirable because it's predictable and sticks to surfaces. It also continues to be easily manipulated by further aero devices downstream as long as it continues to stay coherent and flowing. Turbulent airflow is where the air gets chaotic and starts to misbehave in twists and curls and acting in unpredictable, blustery ways. This is often undesirable, particularly along the bodywork, which is where the Flow Viz takes its measurements. Turbulent flow will throw the paint into chaotic splotches. You may see pools of paint gathering together in seemingly random patterns, distorted waves of colour and other messy patterns. Generally, paint gathering anything but those nice smooth lines we saw is an influence of turbulence. Another thing to look for is where the airflow is attached to and detached from the bodywork. For the most part, aerodynamicists design the shapes of their wings and other body parts, particularly aero devices, to keep the airflow attached to their surfaces. This means the air sticks to and follows the surface closely. At high speeds, it's easy for the air to fly away from the surface if that surface changes direction suddenly, and this is called airflow detachment. Detached airflow is mostly not desired as it greatly reduces downforce and increases the risk of turbulence further down the body. But whatever kind of attachment pattern you're looking for, you can spot it with Flow Viz for the most part. If the airflow is attached, it will carry and spread the dye along the body of the surface. A nice, strong, continuous attached airflow will show itself by trailing a lot of dye along the area of the attached flow. If the air tends to detach from the surface, it won't be able to drag the Flow Viz paint, and you'll see gaps on the bodywork with a distinct absence of paint. There is a limitation here, however. Often airflow detachments will occur at higher speeds, and if the paint has already been allowed to flow through the lower speeds as the car accelerates up to the top speeds, it may be difficult to spot that this is happening from Flow Viz alone. In this shot of the Red Bull rear wing, we can see some detachment from the underside here among otherwise strong attached flows. Here it looks like there's some detachment, though that may just be an unpainted area. This shot of the McLaren diffuser shows where the airflow sticks and detaches from the underbody shape. Here, of course, some detachment may be part of the design. Again, we don't know which tests are being run, so we can't overstate what we're looking at, but we can take a lot of interest in the areas being studied. For example, Sauber here are clearly evaluating how the airflow disrupted by the front wing continues to behave all the way down the side of the car, so probably a front wing test. Here, McLaren are checking how the air from the front wing flows through the barge boards and turning vanes. And here it looks like McLaren are specifically evaluating the efficiencies of the airflows on the left and right side of their cars separately, to have a look at the differences on this specific track. Flow Viz Paint is a striking but limited method for confirming aerodynamic expectations on track. Teams will often get more data from their wind tunnels and these piton tube structures, but Flow Viz continues to be a quick and easy way to sign everything off. And speaking of quick and easy ways of getting things done, I'd like to give a thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this video today. Now, if you wanted to run your own website, you could code it from scratch with the old pointy brackets HTML, close pointy brackets, or you could use Squarespace, which is a simple all-in-one platform with lots of lovely templates to get you started on a brilliant, unique looking website that's easy to manage for your business, portfolio, blog, online shop, pictures of your gran, all of that. You don't have to faff around with anything because their templates will automatically keep your site looking pretty cool on different screens, on mobile, on desktop, everything. And if you do need help, there's 24/7 customer support, so you can't go too wrong. Now, you can give it a free trial by going to squarespace.com, and if you're happy with that and want to sign up for real, you can get a discount by going to squarespace.com/chainbearerf1, so they know that I sent you. You got a great idea? You can make it with Squarespace.